instructor for Literature 100, and this is the part 2 of the outline video series that I'm doing here. So this one is the Milestone 2, which is the outline, filling in the outline worksheet. So if you haven't looked at part 1, that was the one I had done that was creating an outline structure. This time I'm going to be using that structure and filling in the actual outline worksheet. So here is the worksheet. This is what you were given in the for a template for this particular assignment. This is exactly what you have on your on the Brightspace pages. All I've done is highlighted these areas where it says to insert things. So you'll see as we go along, it's where I'm going to be inserting the stuff that I'm writing that will be graded for this particular assignment. So we begin here with our introduction. So I want to show you how you find the introduction information. So I'm going to show you. So the first part of your introduction information is going to come from your final thesis statement assignment. So that's from Milestone 1. All of this information up to this point, you can just reuse. You could just copy and paste it into your outline worksheet. It's the exact thing that you've done for your thesis statement assignment, just plop it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I can copy that from there. And then we will be using the thesis statement, the revised thesis statement from when I created my outline structure. Remember, we revised this thesis statement to include symbols, tone, and setting. So I'm going to combine those two things and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to put here where it says insert introduction. I'm just going to go ahead and plop in what I've done and then I'll explain. So this up to this point is all directly from my thesis statement assignment. So it's this thesis statement assignment, everything I have highlighted here. Everything I have highlighted here. I'm going to make one revision here at the end, symbols, tone, and setting. Okay, and then here I have James Joyce reveals the theme of loss of innocence and despair, two common emotions in society today through the story aired by using symbols, tone, and setting. So again, this is what I've revised it from here. I am using it here as well. Okay, so I have my 3 elements that I need for my outline structure. It's sitting there, and I've revised this part here so that it's accurate. This text reveals this experience through the use of symbols, tone, and setting. So I have an accurate, complete introductory paragraph. So that one, super easy because we've already done the work for that. Okay, then I'm going to move on. After you've done that, so I'm going to move on to the body paragraphs. So I'm going to be referring back to the structure that we created here, the symbols, tone, and setting. And when I go into more detail, you'll see that my first body paragraph is about symbols. I have point 1 and point 2 here. So again, I'm referring back to this pre-writing work that I've done. So if I scroll down here, body paragraph 1, supporting argument 1, I'm going to insert right now my topic sentence. So my topic sentence is an overview of what this paragraph is about. It doesn't have any details in it. There's no extra information. It's just, what is this paragraph about? And so I'm going to go ahead and just plop this in here. My paragraph is going to be about Joyce's story reveals the issues of loss and innocence and despair in society through multiple symbols found in the text. So that is what my paragraph is about. In no details, it just relates to my thesis statement argument, and then it says I'm going to be using symbols. That's it. That's a topic sentence. It's like a mini thesis statement for your paragraph. It just says what this paragraph is going to be about. Then I'm going to move on to my supporting points. So if you remember, I have 2 supporting points here. Point 1, the closing of the market, and point 2, the boy's infatuation with a sister. So I'm going to go back over to this section, and where it says insert supporting points, I'm going to put in my supporting points with a little bit more detail, right? I'm going to add in, this is where I add my detail. So I've got the closing of the marketplace as a symbol of loss of innocence and despair. So if you notice, I am relating this back to my thesis statement argument. So that's, I don't just say closing of the marketplace, I say it is as a symbol of loss and innocence. Then the next point, the boy's infatuation with Mangan's sister. I don't just write that though. I write is a symbol of loss and innocence and coming of age. And then I put in a quote because I have even more detail. Now I have textual evidence that I can use in my paper to, as an example, to exemplify this symbol of loss of innocence and coming of age. So I'm, as much as I could put a lot of detail in here because I'm going to be using this in my final paper. So the more work I do here, gathering quotes, showing how this boy's infatuation is a symbol and relating it to my thesis statement, all of that stuff is work that now I don't have to do in this for the final milestone. So these are the points I want to make, is that I'm saying it's a symbol and I'm saying how it relates to my thesis statement in my supporting points. So it should be that detailed. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to transition. So transition is like a segue that links one topic to the next. So I'm going to be using my thesis argument as my linking quality between these two things. So what is my next point? My next point is tone. That's my next element that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to relate symbols to tone. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And it could be very direct. It does not have to be indirect at all. In fact, the more direct, the better. So I'm going to write, symbols are not the only way that cultural meaning becomes apparent in the story. Tone also creates the meaning of loss and innocence and despair. So there's my transition. I've connected these two elements, symbols and tone, through this idea of loss of innocence and despair. So that is the function of the transition sentence, and it's very direct. So that is how I'm going to then transition to my next point, which if I go back to my pre-writing information, my next point is tone, and I have my 2 points already thought about and thought through. So I'm going to go here, and I'm not going to explain too much here because it's semi-repetitive here. I'm just doing the same thing with tone. So I'm going to begin with my topic sentence, which again adds no detail. It just has loss of innocence and despair are present in the tone of Araby. Okay, that's it. No details. And then I'll put in my supporting points here. So my supporting points are: the narrator presents the attitude tone about unfulfilled dreams and despair in the beginning of the paper. There's a quote that backs it up. Then I have the bizarre scene presents a tone of loss of innocence and despair. And again, this backs it up, this quote. Great. So now I have, again, I'm connecting it, tone, despair, and what's happening. All of this is connected here. Again, the bizarre scene presents a tone of loss of innocence and despair. Again, I'm hitting tone, loss of innocence and despair, and then my point about this tone, okay? All right, so then my transition, now I need to transition. If I go back to this information, I need to go from tone to my next element, which is setting, okay? So that's my transition is going to go from tone to setting, and I'm just going to insert it here. The tone of the story also relates to setting in connection to loss of innocence and despair. So again, just really direct. I'm segueing, I'm making that connection, I'm making that link, and then I repeat the process the third time. I'll start with my topic sentence about setting. It's again, no details. The last literary element that reveals loss of innocence and despair is that of setting in this story, Araby. And then I go to my next supporting points, which is, if I look back here at my pre-writing, I've got the bizarre and then the end scene. So my supporting points, I'm going to plop those in. My supporting points, the bazaar, the setting of bazaar becomes different than what he thought it to be. And I connect it to disappointment, despair, things like that. You can read through that at your leisure. And then the ending scene brings about the feeling of despair and loss of innocence. So see, once again, I'm not just saying the ending scene, I'm saying how it relates to my thesis statement. And then I have a quote here that backs it up. Okay, and now finally I'm ready to transition to my conclusion. So I'm going to transition all of these paragraphs to my conclusion. So throughout the story, the symbols, tone, and setting all contribute to a larger cultural issue present in the story. So that transitions to my concluding paragraph. I do want to take a minute here to go through some of the information on the conclusion. This is not just write whatever you want conclusion. There are very specific things that you have to write about. So make sure you're looking at this. First, you need to restate your thesis statement. This is not a copy and paste from your introduction. You need to restate it in a different way. Same ideas stated in a different way. You need to apply your argument to a larger context. Explain how culture impacts the text, how the text could impact culture, and then really importantly is discuss the relationship between literature and identity, using the term identity. I want to emphasize that. That gets missed a lot, that I've seen students miss that quite a bit. So make sure that you are including that. So here is my conclusion. So and make sure you are writing your full conclusion and you have all those requirements that you have to fulfill here. So I'm going to just plop this in here real quick. So Joyce's short, and I'll read through it and explain. Joyce's short story, Araby, discusses the loss of innocence and despair that will occur when one realizes that their dreams do not hold up in the stark reality of light of reality. At some point, one will learn that life may not provide what they desire. As such, the story may be discussing a very dramatic form of identity formation in the process of growing up. So there's my connection to identity, but also a very basic emotion. My argument is important because I'm talking about a common issue in today's society. So there, I'm linking it to a larger context and how culture could impact the interpretation of the text, how the text could impact the culture, right? A common issue in today's society, accepting unfulfilled desires and coping with despair and disappointment are issues that we face in society today. Literature helps us realize that we are not alone in our disappointments and that losing innocence is a natural part of maturing. So there I'm talking about this conversation that's going on between the society and this literature and how they impact, how society impacts it and how this literature impacts society. So all of that stuff is in this conclusion, and I have written a full conclusion. So be sure you're looking at the rubric for what is required for this particular assignment. There are very specific things for the introduction, conclusion, and the body paragraphs, or the supporting sections of this outline. And that is how you go from your outline structure to the completed outline worksheet. And as always, let me know if you have questions. Thank you.